With the cost of living crisis, money is on the minds of many of us. So, what is the best way to increase the amount of money we take home every month?
And how do we find work that we actually enjoy? That's the question that we're asking this week's guest, Shoshana, aka the Fairy Job Mother, on this week's episode.
From tricky job interviews to career changes and redundancies, Shoshana tells us this week how we can navigate the tricky world of work.
Shoshana gave us so many valuable tips, and this episode is really useful for anyone who's in the world of work. Shoshana, we are so happy to have you here and have been dying to speak to you about all the amazing advice you give. And one of the things I wanted to start with was, we're in a cost of living crisis at the moment, and a lot of people are thinking about how they can make more money to cope with the increased cost of everything. So on that basis, what advice do you have for how, or like what is the most impactful way you can increase your salary?
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And well, to put it bluntly, well, I guess if you're somebody that's like working full time, which I'm assuming this question is towards, I would say the quickest way or easiest way to increase your income is, to be honest, switching companies. So obviously at your existing company, you can ask for a pay rise, you can like negotiate your salary, but realistically, like pay rise wise, like I would say maximum, and this is like a very generous pay rise, probably maximum raise you're going to get within a company is like, I would say 20%, right? Unless you got like a really big new job, but realistically it's not going to increase your income that drastically. However, switching companies, you're a lot more likely to increase your income quickly. Like I know people that I've worked with that have like doubled their salary simply from switching. Especially like during COVID, there were some companies that were literally hiring like mad. They would do anything to like get talent. They were like doubling salaries. So it was pretty crazy. However, on the other hand, I guess it depends. But I would say that one point that's quite interesting to think about is obviously this question, I'm guessing, was targeted in like salary in a sense, in terms of like money that you get paid every month, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, if you staying at your existing company, or some companies, for example, the company that I work for at the moment, I've been there for about 5 years, and I'm actually leaving at the end of the month. But one thing that has been really good is I'm pretty much leaving with, I would say, around like pretty much a house deposit's worth of stock options.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so like every year based on performance, we would get like a specific amount of stock options. Obviously, the better perform, the more you get. And over time, that all accrues. So if that is something that your company offers, if you're really happy there, you don't really want to leave, you've asked for that pay rise, there are other things that you can negotiate, like things like stock options as well.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful, because I think so often people think that is what you have to do, is move company. Mm-hmm. And what other things are there that you can think about negotiating if you are actually happy, but if your company are like, we can't actually increase your pay much, what else can people think about?
Yeah, so there's things like stock options, like pay time off. My mind's going blank now. Pay time off. I was just about to say something.
Like I have one.
I guess it's like pensions.
Oh yeah, pension contributions. Any kind of wellness benefits, courses, learning, them paying for you to do a specific course, learning. I'm sure there's other things, but I would say like those are all really good things to start with.
And what about for people who are switching and they are looking to significantly increase their salary? What advice do you give for that absolutely dreaded question at job interviews when they ask you, what is your current salary? And you are literally trying to make a big jump.
Okay, well, first of all, can I just say I freaking hate that question.
It's just
it's
awful.
Honestly the worst question in the world. And like, to be honest, I'm all around not answering that question, honestly, and trying to kind of divert the conversation to what salary you're looking for or what your salary expectations are. Because as far as I'm concerned, like, it's not really a potential employer's business how much you're earning. The only reason they would be asking you that question is to potentially use that as, you know, leverage down the line if you were offered a role to pay you less, really. Yeah. The offer they give you should be representative of your skills, your experience, and what they've interviewed you for. So as far as I'm concerned, it's literally none of their business. So yeah, I usually recommend people divert the question, say, well, what I can tell you is, I'm looking for a salary range of, I don't know, 50 to 60K. And depending on how the employer reacts to that, I would say that's pretty telling, right? If they decide they no longer want to interview you because you're not going to disclose that information, then you've dodged a bullet as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great tip there, to try and divert it rather than answering it. And I've heard people say before as well, like, oh, well, you can make it up, but also I don't think that's great advice
They'll
either.
just find out anyway, like HR or payroll, they see from like a tax perspective when you join the company how much you would have been paying anyway. So I personally wouldn't feel comfortable about lying. On an online application form, sometimes you don't actually verbally get asked. Sometimes you'll be asked on like an online application form. I personally just always like say NA or leave it blank, or if you can, because I just generally don't think it's their business.
Yeah.
So another thing that you talk about a lot is encouraging your audience to apply for jobs that they don't necessarily tick all of the requirements for. And this is something that I really resonated with when I was reading it, because I've read a lot of studies which say that women in particular tend to look to fulfill more of the requirements in the job description than men, whereas men are more likely to just kind of take a punt and give it a go. And actually, there is no reason why we shouldn't apply for a job where we don't think we tick every single requirement. So, I guess the first question is, how can we go about finding the confidence to do that? But also, does it work if you apply for a job where you don't actually tick all the boxes? Is it worth our time?
Yeah, I mean, here's my take, here's my perspective. So a kind of job posting and looking at the skills and requirements they're looking for, that's like pretty much an employer's wish list, right? So in an ideal world, in an ideal situation, somebody would have all those things. It's highly unlikely that they are looking for an exact fit. And to be quite honest, if you were an exact fit, then you're likely overqualified for the role, because you want to be going into a role where there's room for you to grow, learn new things. If you're getting hired into a role where you can already comfortably do everything, then you're not going to be challenged, you're going to be unfulfilled, right? So I would say it's an employer's wish list. If there's 6 requirements, you meet 3 or 4 of them, apply, you literally have nothing to lose. That would be my take, and it does work because I've done it myself. Other people have done it that I know, that I work with, that I put out content for. So I think you just need to put yourself out there. You have 0 to lose.
How would you say to approach it if you do that and then you get into an interview and someone asks you, like, okay, so this is what we're looking for, do you have all of those skills, and actually you don't? How do you answer that in a way that I guess doesn't work against you, and be honest about the fact that you're there to learn?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I think it's quite unlikely that in a job interview, they're going to be like, do you have all these skills, right? And the questions they'll ask you will be asking you to demonstrate those skills. So obviously, I would always focus on what you have, what you don't have, right? So if they did outright ask you, oh, do you have experience in this thing specifically? You could say, I don't, but I have this, or, but I'm willing to learn. Or sometimes when I've applied for jobs, if I've seen like something specific which I don't have experience in, but I know I'm interested in, before the job interview, I'll do a bit of research. I'll maybe do like an online course or something, just so I have a bit of knowledge, so I can say, do you know what, I'm actually doing an online course on this. So try and, divert the conversation, or make it focus on what you do have. Never in an interview focus on what you don't have. Always try and divert things, of course, while still being honest.
I've heard a couple of stories as well about from friends who have gone to job interviews and they know they're lacking a couple of the kind of requirements, but they've just been honest and said, I want to learn this and I am willing to learn, and I will put in extra hours to learn these things, but I have the core traits of someone that can really succeed in this job. So I really I really like that as a...
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, like you said, any employer, they want people that are motivated, they want people that are willing to learn. So as long as you can portray that, always focus on what you do have, though.
One thing I could say personally is that I think what scares me about the idea of applying for a job that I don't meet the requirements for is the fear of rejection. And I can imagine a lot of people feel the same way.
Can I just add something? I just wanted to say, I think another thing with that comment of don't like apply for jobs you don't meet all the requirements for, I think you also need to be realistic, right? So if you are a graduate, do not apply for a job where they're requesting 10 years experience.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm talking about the kind of key soft and hard skills. If they say they're looking for somebody with, I don't know, teamwork, communication skills, and then like specialize in digital marketing and like Photoshop and InDesign, and you only have Photoshop, or do you know what I mean?
Or maybe it's like they want 5 years experience and you've got 4.5. It's like, I know I can do this job.
Yeah, exactly. Like be realistic about it. I'm not saying like apply for anything.
Sure. But I think just in general, we all fear rejection in the job application process. And I'd love to know what advice you have for anyone who is facing rejection, possibly from, you know, a dream job that they were so attached to the idea of. How do we kind of keep moving forward after we've been rejected without getting too disheartened?
Yes, that is a really good question. So first of all, one thing that I like to do in all the content I put out, or one thing I'm very like vocal about, is rejection and normalizing rejection, because it is something that every single person goes through, and every single person that is actually successful has been through, right? Yeah. Steven Spielberg, Walt Disney. One of my favorite ones is about the founder of Canva. I can't remember her name, but she went for like VC funding. She basically tried to get VC funding from 100 different people. Wow. They all said no, and on her 101st, somebody said yes, and now Canva is valued at like 50 billion and is the most valuable women-founded startup ever.
Phenomenal, yeah.
So everybody...
And that story isn't unique. Like, we do hear lots of stories like that.
No, yeah. So first of all, you are not alone. And at least for me, like, I've learned to love rejection, because I know if I'm not getting rejected, I'm not taking enough risk, because I'm not putting myself out there. When you're not getting rejected, it means you're only going for things that you know you're bound to get or you're qualified for. So that's how I look at rejection. So let's normalize it. It's nothing individual or personal to you. And in terms of like how to, you know, overcome it, one thing that has always worked for me is just, you know, taking a bit of a break, right? Taking some time away. There was one job that I applied for about 2 years ago. I really, really wanted it. I'd gone for about 6 interview rounds. I was at the last round, and the last round was like an all-day interview, and I found out I didn't get it, and I was literally devastated, and it literally hurt. Like, I literally cried. You know, you get so invested in these things, and it hurt, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I took a good week off, interviewing, applying for jobs, and, you know, I came back, and it's like a breakup, right? It'll feel better with time. Just take a little bit of break and come back to it. But you will find something. And I'm a strong believer of like everything happens, cringe, but everything happens for a reason. And if like, and also yes, no now doesn't necessarily mean no forever. So like my sister, for example, she just got her graduate job, but she did like a placement year, and there was this dream company she really wanted to work for. She got to the final interview stages for like her placement year. This was like a few years ago. She didn't get it. And I said to her, look, like, it's not the end, just like keep going. She actually contacted one of her interviewers, and she like asked for feedback, and he was like, you know, I thought you were really good. She was like, oh, can we just keep in contact? She managed to basically secure like an internship like the following summer, so that when it came round to last year, when she was applying for graduate jobs, she reapplied, and then she got the job, right?
Amazing.
So
amazing.
No now doesn't always mean forever as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think as well, like a lot of people at the moment, we're seeing a lot of layoffs. It happens every time we go through a bit of a rocky economic period. And I think for a lot of people dealing with that, then even though you know it's not anything to do with you, it can feel like a bit of a rejection. So is there anything that you would advise to people who maybe are dealing with an unexpected redundancy and their confidence is feeling a bit low? How can you go into the new job hunt from a place where you're maybe feeling like a little bit insecure?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And actually, the company that I'm at now, there's like a lot of layoffs happening. So like loads of my colleagues are actually leaving. So I can definitely, you know, I know that feeling for sure. I think it's just really important to remember that you have, you know, so much skills and experience that like some employer out there is like dying for, right? So actually a lot of the people that are leaving my company, they're getting snapped up by our direct competitors, right?
Wow.
So because we like, you know, we have the exact skills and experience that they are looking for. So there is absolutely an employer out there that is like dying for what you have. You may feel a bit rusty, especially if you've been at the company for a long time, but just, you know, ease yourself into it. I would probably set the expectation with yourself that realistically, you know, you're going to experience rejection, because I think a lot of people go into job hunt and they're like, oh, I'm going to find something really quickly, and then they sometimes do get like a bit shocked, but that's just the reality of the job market, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you go in with that awareness, but that you will find something and you have so much to offer, hopefully that will be helpful.
It's so funny. Like, I feel that this could be translated into dating advice. Like, it's very similar, isn't it? And I think it's probably because both those things, a relationship or a job, they're things that are so personal to us. And we all have like, you know, we attach it to our kind of identity, and we're all different in terms of what we want. And I guess one thing like I wanted to ask is, because we are all different and there's no kind of cookie cutter correct career path, you know, for everybody. For anyone who is either embarking on their career journey, maybe they've just come out of school or college, or they're just graduating from university, or for anybody who's having a career change, what advice do you give someone to find what's going to really work well for them personally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a question that I actually get asked a lot. So, I mean, I think it's really important first. I mean, I think there's like such a pressure on society of like finding a career, and like everybody stresses because it's like, I need to find something that I'm gonna be doing for the next 20 years. That couldn't be further from the truth. Like, all you need to do is find something that you enjoy right now. You can change, you can leave anytime you freaking want. Do you know what I mean? You can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. And I personally think, like, I work in the tech industry now, I personally think we are all gonna have to, in the future, reinvent ourselves consistently, because as technology evolves, a lot of jobs are gonna get automated and different things like that. So I do think there's gonna be a lot of upskilling. So first of all, I want to set the scene that you do not have to like find this perfect career which is going to be yours forever, because once you know that, I feel like that takes off a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Second of all, at least for me, it's really important for me to actually do something that I enjoy, that's aligned with my interests. So, one thing I always tell people is, map out your interests. What are you actually interested in? And then what are you good at? And try and do some research on roles that align with both of them. For example, I was speaking to somebody the other day. The only thing they do in their spare time is gaming. They love gaming, right? Google jobs in gaming. There are so many different jobs. There's like a games developer, there's like a games programmer, there's a UX designer, there's like so many different things. I was like, go and look at these, look into these a bit more. He was like, oh, how do I do that? I was like, do you know what? YouTube and TikTok are your best friends. I love the day in the life videos. How good are they?
Yeah.
They have them.
I don't know about these.
They have them for every single job.
Really?
Go on to like YouTube or TikTok and do like day in the life of a UX designer.
That's such a great shout.
And there's like videos from like people all around the world that work as a UX designer. Once you've got an idea, do I actually like these roles? Maybe shortlist down to one or two. And then I would try and start like speaking to people like specifically that work in those roles. LinkedIn is like a really good tool to do that, because you can find anyone at any company in any single role. Try and speak to some people and actually ask them, so you can kind of really validate your interest. And then once you kind of have done your research, spoken to people, think, okay, this may be something that I'm interested in, can you try and get some real life experience, whether that be doing an online course, whether that be starting your own project on the side to make sure you really actually enjoy it, or getting something like an internship or work experience. And then obviously if you like those, then you kind of know, maybe this is something I should pursue now. And if I don't like it in 6 months or a year, that's fine. But yeah, I would always recommend starting out with like what you're actually interested in.
Yeah, and actually when you put it like that, it makes so much sense, doesn't it? It's like, I think we often forget that there are things that we're so interested in which actually can translate into careers, but for some reason I think it's quite hard to align the two sometimes in your head. You're like, you've got to have work and then you've got to have interests, and actually why not bring the two together? And I think that point as well about like what are you good at and what do you enjoy, and finding something that overlaps the two is really helpful to try and think from that perspective.
Yes, because often they're not the same. Like, I can talk from personal experience. Sometimes something you enjoy isn't necessarily the thing that you're good at.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Keep it for a hobby, but
Yes.
you don't necessarily need to make it your career. But in any career, whether it's a job or you're self-employed, there are inevitably going to be some really challenging times. And I'd love to know, in the face of kind of really hard times with work, and you're kind of having those days, like you said, after you didn't get that job, you were like, oh, I just can't do this anymore. We all feel like that at some points. It's like, I just can't do this anymore. How do you know when it's time to like just dig your heels in and keep pushing through, and when it's actually time to cut your losses and walk away?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess, like, how many times do you find yourself saying, oh, I can't do this anymore? But I think in short, you know, when either you're just really not enjoying the work, or it's clear that there's no room for progression, right? You've asked for a pay rise, you've asked to get promoted, you've asked to do other things, and it's kind of just fallen on deaf ears. I think those two things are like really important when you just don't enjoy the work, don't like the people, and then you know that there's no room for progression. I think those are definitely signs. We're definitely signs. I do think though, when you start a new job, this is a bit controversial, but maybe give yourself like a little bit more leeway, because I'm a big believer in every time I've started a new job, me personally, I have not even fully understood like what the hell I'm doing for at least 6 months. So every time because there's just so many, like when you're joining a company, there's so many processes, there's all these products, there's all these new people, you genuinely don't understand. So what your role looks like in month 1 is going to look so much different to what your role looks like in month 6. So unless it is genuinely dreadful, the people are horrible, like it's toxic, there's bullying, like I do recommend people to kind of stick it out for at least 6 months. And then after 6 months, if you still hate it, leave. But I don't think you really know a role until then, me personally. But some people just do what they want, which is fine.
And you mentioned there about, stick it out for 6 months. And I've spoken to a lot of people who feel as though if you move too often, so if you moved after 6 months, that it wouldn't look great on your CV. But do you think that's actually not true? And is it okay if you move after 6 months, a year, if something's not working out?
I think if something isn't working out, then like it's absolutely fine. And I think it's only an issue if you kind of can't justify why you've moved. So yeah, to be honest, it may look a bit weird to a recruiter, right, if someone has consistently only been in a job in 6 months, because for them it's like, why do I want to invest all my time and resources in this person that may leave in like 5 months? Like, it's not worth it. So usually hopefully they'll ask you, and if you can justify it, then it's fine. But really, if someone's like consistently leaving after 6 months, it's like, yeah, it seems like you keep on making the same mistake. Do you know what I mean? Like, you probably need to do a bit more research, ask a few more questions in the interview process so that you understand what you're actually getting into.
Yeah.
And for the people that just are just leaving, and it's like there's nothing actually wrong with the job, they're just like leaving. A year is fine, but like within 6 months, to me, I'm just like, it's questionable. Like, what can somebody actually do from at a job in 6 months? Probably not that much.
Yeah.
But no, I think as long as you can justify it, it's fine.
And for anybody that's starting to kind of embark on a job hunt or a career change, where do you begin with researching, like where you can look, what type of level you should go in, what kind of salary you can expect? What would you say are kind of the starting points for anyone that's just got this idea in their head that they need something different?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I would maybe, in terms of like role-wise and industry-wise, I would maybe go back to the point of like, okay, start thinking, like think about what you're actually interested in, because then at least you can, okay, I'm interested in gaming, for example, there's different roles, but then a role isn't usually like specific to a particular industry. Do you know what I mean? So like, regardless of what the role is, you can be like maybe a games developer in like a beauty company, or there's so many different industries, you know what I mean? So once you've got a role, you can kind of figure out industry wise. In terms of like things like, I think you need to kind of shortlist to a few roles that you're interested in, and then you can move to things like salary.
Yeah.
Because one mistake I see a lot of people make is they kind of start their job search, they don't have like a salary range in mind or anything, and then they get like a job offer and they're just panicked because it's like, oh, is this good? Or I've been asked my salary expectations, I don't know what they are. I would always recommend kind of doing your research. So say if you did identify a role or one or two roles, start researching like what is the average salary for this role based on experience or based on location, and then based on the experience that you have, you can kind of come up with a range based on that, and that's what you can tell employers if they ask.
I actually have another question, which is how, and you know, I get that it's personal, but I'd just love to know your opinion, having kind of the insight that you've got. If you are leaning towards a particular job or career where there's either, you know, a real ceiling in the pay or the pay is just generally low, and you know, there are realistic expectations we just have to meet in terms of salary to keep up with the current cost of living. But of course, we also live in a world where we have social media. There are other ways to make an income on the side. You might be able to do some coaching in your particular area of expertise. Would you encourage somebody to go for a job that they really love on the basis that they can make money through other means, or the money will come later? Or do you think money genuinely is a limiting factor when it comes to career choices?
I personally think it like depends on the individual personally, because obviously some people are like very money motivated, some aren't. Like I would love to be a social worker. The only reason I am not a social worker is because of the pay, right? That is going to be like my retirement job. Like,
actually, me too.
When I've made enough money, when I've retired, like I would love to like become a social worker. But the reason I'm not doing it now is the money just isn't there, right? But obviously for some people, like that are social workers, that's not so much of an issue, right?
Yeah.
So I do think it depends on the individual, to be quite honest. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your circumstances.
Yeah.
One last question I just have to ask you, mainly because I have a niece who's just about to turn 18 and thinking about her uni choices, which, you know, many of her friends are. When I was at uni, it very much felt like you had to pick a degree that was going to serve you for your career forever. And like you say, things are really different now. Do you have any advice for anyone who's thinking of going to university and doesn't necessarily know what they want to do career-wise? Do you have any advice about what sort of degree to choose in terms of what's going to serve you well for a potentially multifaceted career?
That is a really good question. God, I don't even know the answer because
yeah, I think
I'm not actually sure because me and all my friends did the opposite. So we actually just chose degrees of things we were good at.
Yes, you see, this is, and I think this is what I'm trying to say to my niece now. Like, just choose something that you're going to enjoy and that you're good at.
Because ultimately, I don't know whether it's the same now, but I feel like when we went, it was more just about having a degree from a decent uni, not what you studied.
I chose something that I thought would sound good. And it was all right, but like, you know, I would not do it again if I was to go back in time.
I just did what I was good at, and what I liked.
Yeah, I mean, if your niece has decided that the university is what she wants to do, because there are many other routes. And to be honest, if I was going back now, like I would not have gone to university, right? I would have done an apprenticeship. Like, what is better than like working and earning money and like
not getting into so much debt?
Yeah, like honestly, like I would have done an apprenticeship. So, but yeah, I think it's fine. I think there's so many like careers, and obviously unless like she finishes uni and she decides, you know what, I actually really want to become a doctor, which they even now have actually just started doing an apprenticeship for, then like I think any degree is fine. Like there's so many industries. I feel like for most industries, like you don't need a specific degree anymore, as long as because when you're at uni, you just develop so many different skills, transferable skills, right, which are relevant to any industry. Like when you're applying for a job, they all have communication skills, teamwork, etc. You develop all of that at uni. And I think as long as, you know, she doesn't just spend 3 or 4 years at uni and come out with like no work experience at all, because that is what a lot of people do. They'll just pick something, they'll be like, oh, I don't have to worry about jobs now. They'll finish, they've got nothing on their CV at all, then that's a problem, right? As long as she kind of, while she's there, makes an effort to at least try a few different things. So when she comes out, she's like, do you know what, I've dabbed in this, I've dabbed in that. This one interested me more, but if I change my mind, I've always got this, then I'd probably,
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? And she can always change degrees if she wants as well, but...
It's so hard.
Tell us to do an apprenticeship, honestly.
I'm trying. I'm trying so hard, but she wants to have the uni experience.
Yeah, I do get that. And I do think there is a lot in terms of life skills that you get from university. But thank you so much. We've learned so much from you. And I think there are going to be a lot of people who are in various different situations and flex in their careers that can get a lot from this. But for anyone that is looking to find out more and follow you along with what you do, where can they find you?
Yes. So my Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn are The Fairy Job Mother. And then I also have a website which is currently down, but hopefully it's going to be live by the time this goes out, which is fairyjobmother.co.uk.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, amazing. Are you moving